What's going on, everybody? It's Teach Me Mr. P. Today we're talking about Chapter 7, Lesson 2, Subtracting with Unlike Denominators. Hope you're ready. Alright, so before we jump into this, let's take a look at something pretty simple. Here we have 3/4 and 1/8. If I was to take 1/8 and subtract it from 3/4, what would I get? Well, I'm not sure. Let's see. If we take this 1/8 and we line it up here, I want to know how many eighths I would need to fill in the rest of this. That would tell me how many eighths I would have left, because I would have 3/4 and we've already used 1/8. So whatever is left will be our answer. So we have 1/8 there. That's going to be 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8. Now 6/8 fill in the entire fraction of 3/4. But we're subtracting 1/8. So when we subtract 1/8, how many eighths do we have left? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 left. That's because 3/4 minus 1/8 is 5/8. Alright, cool. So now we know how to do it with fraction tiles. Let's take a look. We're not always going to have fraction tiles with us, so it's super important that we learn how to do this with paper and pencil. Let's take the example of the exact same thing. That's going to be 3/4 minus 1/8. Alright, the first thing I have to find is a common denominator. And if you're not sure how to find a common denominator, a very simple way is to make lists of all the multiples of 4 and 8 and then see if you have any that are in common. Let's do that first. So some multiples of 4 would be 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Now, how many multiples do you have to find? I'd say about 4 or 5 should be good. If you do 4 or 5 and you still can't find anything in common, do 5 or 6. It might take you a couple more, but it's okay. Don't freak out. We're just counting by 4s. It's not that hard. Now we take some multiples of 8. That would be 8, 16, 24, 32. And that should be plenty. Now we take a look and we compare these two lists. Do we have any in common? Let's take a look. I have a 4 here. Our 4 is common in both lists. There's a 4 here, not a 4 there, so 4s are not common. What about an 8? I have an 8 here. Do I have an 8 here? Yes. Awesome. 8s are common. 12s, are they common? No. Are 16s? Yes, 16s are also common. 20s? No, not common. Alright, so I have 2 common multiples of 4 and 8. But which one do I choose? Well, the answer is you can choose either of them. It doesn't matter which one you choose. However, I would always suggest choosing the lowest one, the least common multiple. And if you're not sure, that is the LCM. It's super important when you're adding and subtracting fractions. If I pick the least common multiple, everything from here on out will be way easier. If I pick 16, it will still work, but it's just going to be a couple of extra steps in the end. So let's choose 8. 8 is a great one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fraction, I'm going to move it down here, and the same thing with this one. I'm going to move it down here. I'm actually going to rewrite it. I always suggest rewriting these fractions because it's going to make everything so much easier and you can see everything that you're doing. So after you rewrite these, you don't want to write the numerator because you're not sure what the new numerator is going to be. Same thing over here. You don't know what the new numerator will be over here. Now we have to look and we have to do a little bit of thinking here. So we take this 4 and we changed it to an 8, but we can't just magically change numbers in math. That's not how it works. We actually had to do something to this 4 to make it an 8. Now we have to multiply it by something. What did we multiply this 4 by to make it an 8? We multiplied it by 2 to make it an 8. 4 times 2 is 8. Now fractions, whenever you multiply the bottom by something, you also have to multiply the top by the same thing. So in this case we used 2. So we also have to multiply the numerator by 2. And I get 3 times 2 is 6. Now you should notice that 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. They're equal. Now I'm going to draw my sign. We are subtracting. Make sure you subtract and don't add. If you add when you're supposed to subtract, you're going to have a bad time. Now we move on to the second fraction. What did I do to this 8 to make it an 8? Silly question. I didn't do anything. I left it alone. So since I left the denominator alone, I have to also leave the numerator alone. So that just drops down as it was, a 1. So now I'm left with 6/8 minus 1/8. Now I have denominators that are common. I can just subtract these like normal. Remember, your denominator does not change when you subtract fractions. It stays the same. So here I have 8, 8. I want to keep it in 8. Don't change it. Don't tell me that 8 minus 8 is 0. That's not how it works. Your denominator must be the same for everything. Now, I have 8 as a denominator. 6 minus 1 is 5. Now I ask myself, can I reduce this? Can I rename this? In this case, I can't. So I'm left with 5/8 as my answer.